Is it recording?
Yep, it's recording.
All right, here we are on The Blind Man in Black. I am your host, Brian Snyder, or as my guest would call me, Booger Snotter. And so if you like the show, please rate, subscribe, review. If you don't like it, send it to your opposing political party, but do something with it, please. I'd appreciate it. And I'm really excited because I am here with a very, very, very special guest. He's played an enormous role in my life, especially in my formative years. And he is a co-founder of a pilot art school. He's a special education teacher, disability inclusion activist and advocate. And we're going to learn about some more stuff. He was an actor too.
Yeah.
Josh Rauh.
Hello, happy to be here, Brian. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, it's been, I think, 16 years.
Geez, yeah, wow, too long.
Yeah, I don't think we talked. I think I somewhere around like maybe it was like 15 years, but it was like around 2005 or 6 or something in there. And I remember we played cards and then you disappeared and you had like you started having adopting children, having children, and yeah, and that was the last I saw of you.
Yeah, it's crazy when I met my wife because her kids were my students, and so all of a sudden I had 3 kids, and then she got pregnant. All of a sudden I had 4 kids, and then a couple of years later all of a sudden I had 5 kids. So I'm a dad of 5. So
Wow.
it was very fast and exciting, and but I kind of dropped off the radar, and that was my whole life went into being a dad and getting my teaching credential and kind of a new path in life.
Well, how you been holding together through this pandemic?
Pretty good, actually. It's been a we've been trying to make the best of it. We have a nice little home, so we've been doing a bunch of projects around the house, and we got a camper and been doing a lot of camping and just doing a little balance of self-care and work. We were online, our school was online, so it was a big thing trying to take sort of what we do, which is very interactive and very hands-on, and art projects and play, and, all this stuff, and trying to make it work online. So it was, but I think we did pretty good. All things considered, it was a pretty good transition. We kept our kids afloat, kept our kids engaged as much as possible. So yeah,
that's wonderful. I'm happy that you're thriving, man. That's great. So let's start at the very beginning.
Yeah.
The genesis of the Rauh.
Yes. So like from the high school, from where we were, or from back?
No. Way back. There's a deep history. I want to go back to the times I didn't even know about.
Oh yeah, sure. All right. So yeah, so I was born. Well, I was adopted. So I was born, and I was adopted when I was about 2 weeks old by my parents, Robert and Darlene Rauh. And I grew up in a house in the Santa Cruz Mountains, so kind of this idyllic environment. And we had 5 acres of land, and we,
that was 5 acres, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that house on the hill.
That was a great house. That was a cool place. It was really nice to be like so close to like San Jose, but like then immediately you're in the, in the woods again.
Yeah. Yeah, it was neat because it was, I went to Loma Prieta Elementary School and CT English High School, which are these public schools, but they're, my middle school was only 150 kids, and I think the elementary school is maybe 450. So
is that by the dam?
That is, well, it's further up. It's like where all those Christmas tree farms are, on Summit
Okay.
Road.
Okay.
So like if you take the back road to Santa Cruz, you go by the school.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, so it was it was definitely an interesting place, because it was like rural living. Like it was back then, especially, I mean, now there's all those, billion.
Mansions.
Yeah, everybody
Yeah.
wants to live in the mountains, but back in 1971, when my parents bought that property, everybody was like, "You're crazy. What are you doing? You're like in the middle of nowhere."
But they saw the future
Yeah.
of their property value.
So I was it was a great place to grow up. I like spent a lot of time at the beach in Santa Cruz, and we I had dirt bikes, and helped my dad cut down trees around the house on the weekends. And it was just kind of, it was a weird thing, because my parents weren't like rural people really. I mean, like, you knew my parents, they were not, my dad was, he knew his way around, he could fix stuff and build stuff, but they were advertising, they had an advertising agency.
That's right. Yeah.
So they had Rauh, Darlow, and Barnes was their advertising agency in the valley, down in Los Gatos. So
Mhm.
it was kind of like this juxtaposition of kind of this rural life, but it was still, kind of, it was a weird, it was an interesting community, because you had like rednecks up there, and you had
Mhm.
hippies up there, and we kind of didn't fit in especially anywhere. It was kind of like, they were kind of getting up there to, kind of escape the hustle and bustle, and they liked their quiet space. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, they were business people.
And was the chateau up there, like where Jerry Garcia and like those, the bands like
Oh, yeah, no, that was, I think, in Redwood City. That was up.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
For some reason I thought it was there.
yeah. They had, one of the Doobie Brothers though lived right around the corner from us, and Steve
Oh, really?
Wozniak. Steve Wozniak. I went to school with his kid, and
Mhm.
his house was like right up the street from our house.
Well, he must have had several, because I remember like after we graduated, he had another son or something that was in a play and he was in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was because, his son, that was from his first marriage. So his first
Oh,
wife
okay.
had a house up there. And I think he was, because I think his son was more like my sister's age, like 4 years younger than me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So did you have a realization at one point? When did you learn that you were adopted?
I'd always known, really. I mean, it was kind of one of those things that was always kind of, I don't remember a moment when it was like, they broke the news to me. It kind of was a part of, our oral history as a family. My parents were very much like, we couldn't have children. And, they used to say, you were like, most people, they get stuck with the kids that they get, but you're our chosen child.
Mhm.
And so it was kind of a way of, making us as young people feel special, and like it wasn't a stigma around adoption.
Right. And so, I mean, did you have an opportunity at any point? Did you know your biological parents, or?
No, I never did. The story was, I guess my biological father died before I was born.
Okay.
And I never really had any desire to meet my biological mother. I think that part of it was that I wanted to protect my parents, like,
Mhm.
it was very much a big part of our, our thing, that like these were our parents. I would always get really offended if somebody was like, "Oh, do you know your real parents?" I'd always be like, "These are my real parents, dude."
Mhm. Yeah.
And so, I mean, it was kind of like, I kind of had there was a lot of sort of pride around the fact that, I was adopted, but it felt healthy, and it felt like, I'd never, this was my family. And I kind of had sort of a chip on my shoulder about not really, I always felt like, that part of my, that part of my my life was for, my biological parents. I was happy that, that she had the foresight to give me up for adoption. But I was like, well, that was our relationship. That was the end of that,
Mhm.
and I didn't really have any desire to seek her out for anything more.
No, I understand that. Yeah. Yeah, I know sometimes, there's always the option, like sometimes like, the adopted parents don't want the child to know the identity of the biological parents. And other times it's open that they can contact the biological parents at a later date or something like that if they want. And so I'm
Yeah.
just curious how that all played out. But that makes sense based
Yeah,
on
I
what you
think
said.
for
Yeah.
the Catholic adoption agency, I think that it was like, they couldn't contact you, but I think there probably was some sort of um I think it was always like if the child wants to contact them, there was some sort of way to do it, but I never looked into it.
Yeah. Did you ever do the DNA testing? Like
I Yeah, I did do that. I finally did it just this last year during
oh,
quarantine.
really?
Yeah.
What
And
was what were the results?
so it's really funny because I grew up in a very Italian family. I went to my great grandparents' house every weekend for big Italian meals, and it was a big part of my identity that I was Italian American. And I spent
Mhm,
summers with my family in Italy when I was younger, and then I
mhm,
went to college and I learned Italian, and I lived in Italy my junior year of college. So
I
it was
remember that. Yeah.
yeah, it was always a big part of my identity though that that I'm Italian. And it
Mhm.
turns out I'm like 9% Italian and mostly English.
So what are the actual results? Like
um,
9% Italian and what else?
yeah, 9%. It was like 9% Italian, and it was like I don't know. It was like 85% Northern European, English,
Okay.
and Scottish. I think Scottish was the biggest one, like 35% or something.
Wow. Was that shocking?
It was kind of underwhelming. I was like, oh, it's like how much more boring could you get? Like
Right.
I was hoping, well, maybe there'd be like some Native American in there. Stories of like people are like, oh my god, like my sister did a DNA test, and it turns out she's like 12% black, like
Really?
Saharan African. And I'm like, that would have been a little bit more,
Huh.
exciting than just like the whitest person ever.
So I had my friend, she's from the Dominican Republic. She did the DNA test and she's very dark and she has curly hair and she was expecting African and so on. She was like 30% Italian, but it makes sense because of Columbus.
Yeah.
So but yeah, she was a little bit shocked about that. So yeah, I'm kind of interested in doing it myself.
You haven't
I
done it
did
yet?
I did a test for, I have this, disease called Usher syndrome. And so I had to do a test to confirm that. So I know what type it is, but I haven't done an actual, DNA to see what my ethnicity is or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Well, everybody started doing it. Like my kid did it, and Laura did it, and so I was like, they're like, you should do it because we don't know anything about the real. So yeah, so I finally did it. But that was
Yeah,
kind of,
that was,
I was kind of,
you waited a while because 23 and Me and the Ancestry one, they've been out for a while.
yeah, yeah. It was kind of one of those things too. It's sort of that same thing. Like I had a chip on my shoulder. I was like, biology, schmiology. I know what I am. I know where I come from, no matter what it comes back from. But I finally gave in to peer pressure.
Right. So I mean, how do you feel? Are you feel like uh are you gonna explore your roots?
I Not really. I think that maybe if it had come back something more interesting, I might have. But
Yeah, okay.
but
Right.
it's funny though because my mom has this big project now where she's been really into looking into our whole family tree, and so she's been doing this big project about where the relatives on her side of the family come from. So
Mhm.
she's been sending me like old documents and birth certificates and court documents in Italian to try to translate to try to trace her family tree
Mhm.
back. So I'm kind of like, well, I'll just hop on that bandwagon.
My wife has been doing the ancestry research on both sides of the family, and she found that. Do you remember Gammy? Did you meet my Gammy?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, yeah.
And right, and so on her side, there is it's like it's like, I don't know how many great grandfathers away that was a bodyguard for Joseph Smith and Brigham Young.
Wow.
And he turned out to be like a horrible man. Like he murdered hundreds of people,
Wow.
but there's a statue of him somewhere. And so I come from sociopaths. So that's what I learned. So I don't know. Yeah, sometimes maybe some history is left unearthed is best. So, but so I mean, yeah, you seem like you had a very loving family. Your sister is doing very well now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I heard
recently spoke with her.
yeah, I just saw her because I took my son up to San Jose State to the dorms.
Okay, okay.
freshman.
Congratulations. Is this the first college bound?
No, Grady's at Cal Arts.
Oh, okay.
He's doing design and production, so he's in his third year.
Okay.
And the older girls, Kaylin went to Davis for a little while, but she ended up she had some health problems, and so she was like, she came back home, and then she decided to become a massage therapist, so she got certified in that. But yeah, all the kids are doing good, but I'm down to one now in the house. So
Oh, wow. That's intense, right?
yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, that's an interesting place to be, is that like that empty, what do they call it? Empty nest syndrome?
Yeah. So I know, I mean, and it's funny because Emerson or Spencer, Emerson's actually transitioning. He's trans, so our son is Spencer is really like, he and Aiden, his brother, are like best friends. They're like thick as thieves. So I've been watching him because I like, they would spend so much time together. So it's like having the two of them separate is I think the hardest thing for both of them right now. But they seem to be doing okay. He's really happy for his brother. He actually went up there and stayed with him, with my parents, because they're right there, for the first week that he was in the dorms, and they walked around and found all his classes together. And so it was a nice little transition into adulthood for Aiden, because Spencer's always been like, even though he's the youngest, he's the most mature out of all of them in some ways.
Well, congratulations, man. That's wonderful. I'm so happy for you, and I was happy for you when you got married, even though I showed up 2 hours late or something. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. I just went the total opposite direction. I don't know. I was just not thinking clearly, but yeah, I regret that. Just know that.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad you made it though.
Yeah, it was a beautiful location. Where was that? It was
in Topanga Canyon at the Inn of the Seventh Ray.
Right. That's what it was. That's what it was called. Yeah. That was beautiful.
Yeah. It was it was just our 17th anniversary a couple of weeks ago.
Congratulations once again. There's a lot to congratulate you about. You got a lot going on. A lot of wonderful things, man. That's great. So I mean, yeah, you seem like you had a very happy childhood. And so how did you find theater?
I actually was, when I was 8 years old, I did plays in elementary school. So like I was like the White Rabbit in like third grade, and I really loved it. My favorite thing to do in school. And so I went to California Theater Center.
Yes.
So CTC, and I went there first time when I was 8, and I just started going back every summer. And I actually, pretty early on, I got cast in their season. So I was like the turkey boy in A Christmas Carol. And so I auditioned for their shows. And so like I would take like, 4 weeks off during the school year and be on independent study so I could do these shows.
Right. Yeah. I remember that was a cool theater. I like that place.
Yeah, in Sunnyvale.
Yeah. Are they still operating?
I think I don't know if they are actually. I think you remember Win Earl?
I do. Yeah.
Well, Gail Cornelison was the head of the theater company, and he ended up marrying Win's mom.
Yeah.
And so they sort of ran a theater company together, but he just passed away a couple of years ago. So I'm not sure if
Oh,
it exists or
oh.
not
How
still. But
old was he?
Gosh, he must have been in his 70s.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, he was pretty old when I was young. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, so I did that's kind of how I started acting, and I loved it. I went on tour to Alaska.
I did not know that.
Yeah, over the summer. I did a couple touring productions, and it was great. During the summer, it was like 4 weeks I saw or something. We went all through like the all the way up to Anchorage, but we went all stopped in all these little communities and we did shows. We did these plays. I think I did Charlotte's Web. I did another like a new works play. And so we'd stay with the people in the towns, like we'd stay in their houses and we'd like do these little community theater productions in their community centers. And it was great. That was definitely a formative experience, going to Alaska. My dad came with me. Um, he helped, load sets and stuff. And it was really cool. It was really neat. It was like, that was sort of, I really got hooked on the power of theater because we'd go to these little towns that it would be like the whole town would show up, for
Yeah.
these plays. And it was great, and so I did that all the way up through high school. I was doing, I would usually work the summers, and eventually I was teaching at California Theater Center. I was teaching acting and being the artistic director of these little conservatory sites. And it was I just loved the program. It was really neat.
Yeah, it was fun. I did it as well, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great experience, and um, I just remember the kids were just so they loved it. They really enjoyed. Like I think we did a production of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It
Uh-huh.
was no, Charlie and the Glass Elevator. Is that it?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that was it.
Because like they would adapt these stories as like little hour-long plays, right? And then you'd build the sets for them too, and it was kind of, I liked it because it wasn't sort of the big production, it wasn't like San Jose Children's Musical Theater, which was like, you had like massive casts and big costumes, and it was very like showy, it was kind of like, like doing work, like, you're really doing acting.
Right, right. No, I was just thinking of Tony when you said that. So showy. So we'll get to Tony later on. But so yeah, so you started acting and immediately you loved it, and it continued on, of course. And so did you ever think at any point you wanted to become a professional actor?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, that was my major. I was a theater major in college, and we did all kinds of, you know, Brecht and Beckett and all these, the things that you do in college, and I loved it. I loved the craft of acting. So,
Mhm.
and I came with, Tony invited me down to be in a show in LA, and I came to LA to really be a professional actor, and
Mhm.
and I got involved in this theater company that was like an ensemble theater company, um, and I was on the board of directors, and we had 250-seat theaters in Hollywood, and we did a bunch of shows. We produced tons and tons of shows. We, probably 15 a year, little stuff and bigger stuff and showcases, and it was
Well,
back when Hollywood was really rough.
so what theater company was that?
It was called the Nonprofit Hatching Company.
Now, when did you do that? Because I mean, I remember you going to Davis, and I remember you going to living in Italy. So this
Yeah,
was after Italy?
yeah, it was after Davis. It was probably like 2000,
Okay.
2001. Um, and it was with all the people that went to the American Academy of Dramatic Art with Tony. So it was all the people that
Okay.
he went to school with, and like there was a group that started this company, and I got involved with them, and I worked with them for a couple of years, and I was auditioning a little bit,
Mhm.
but I kind of just was, I really liked the theater. I liked doing that kind of that avant-garde theater stuff. And I never really could like, my heart wasn't in it to go out for like, Dr. Pepper commercials and
Yeah.
these things, I just got disenchanted with like, it was just so much work. And you're like, this isn't really what I was interested in doing. And so most of my time was spent producing these little theater pieces and plays in Hollywood. And it was really fun, but of course there's no money in that. So that's how I ended up getting into teaching, is because I was a substitute teacher.
I remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was we used to call it the artist stipend, because you could always say no if you didn't want to teach that day, and if you had an audition or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good, you're making $150 a day or something.
Yeah.
You could kind of subsist as an artist, if you were subbing.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when you were doing that. And I didn't know that you were auditioning though at that time. That's yeah, I don't know why it seems like we were maybe a little disconnected during that period, because that would have been my junior and senior year at Cal Arts. So
yeah, I think we got together a couple times, but we were busy in school,
I guess. I don't know what the fuck I was doing. But yeah, and I know Tony, Tony and I kind of had a falling out, I think, around that time a little bit, because just a very minor one. Like for those listening and watching, Tony Panaghetti, he went to high school with us, and we haven't gone through high school yet, but we've skipped over that, but we'll get back to it. But yeah, so Tony Panaghetti, he I don't know what happened. We were living together, and I think that it was kind of awkward. And then I think I ended up kind of being like, it's been it was a studio apartment. It wasn't like, he had his own room or anything.
right?
So it was a little awkward. He was like, we were like, I was in my bed, he was on the futon like 5 feet away from me.
Yeah.
So it got awkward, and then I can't remember what the fuck happened. We got into an argument about something. Yeah, but anyway. So I think that's my point, is I think that was during that period.
Yeah.
So what was I going to say? So the high school was a lot of fun, man. I just have to go back there because we went to Los Gatos High, and it was just a great time. Like I met you through Guys and Dolls. That was the first production that I did. You were in Guys and Dolls, right?
Yeah, I was Lieutenant Brannigan.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. And that's where we met. And man, your sense of you just had this incredible sense of humor. You always made me laugh. And then, with Tony Panaghetti, it was a great team. I mean, it was so funny. And I remember us doing the variety show skit stuff. I don't remember what they were called, but man, that was so much fun.
Yeah, it was a blast. People talk about how horrible high school was, and I'm like, man, I had a great time in high school.
Yeah, but and it was funny because we didn't do anything that crazy. It's not like we were drinking and smoking weed or anything. It was really like, I mean, we were odd for sure.
Yeah,
we did some odd stuff, but we didn't do anything that like, was really dangerous, or it was, it was fairly clean.
Yeah, it was. I feel like what we were really good at, like, we really extended our childhood through our teen years.
Yes,
like,
we did, like lava tag at 12 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. We did like the adult version of what kids do. And
yeah, I didn't even think of it that way, but yeah, that's true.
And we just had fun. We played. It was like we were. We weren't trying to be cool or be the popular kids. We just did our own thing, and we just had a blast.
Yeah, we sure did. And I should mention the you and Tony were so funny with me. Like, I remember we were both in West Side Story, and we were just about to do the fight scene, and like when the Sharks and the Jets come together, and like I just remember like a whistle blew or something, and I remember I had to whip my head around to like look on the other side, like stage left or something. And this huge, I had a cold, right?
Yeah.
And this huge snot just flew out of my nose as I whipped my head around, and you can see it on the video of the play. The one fucking night they record it, that happens, right?
And, like we would like rewind that and watch it like
In slow motion.
like call people in, like whenever we'd have people over, be like, let's put the video on.
Yeah, I remember that. And that's where you called me. I believe it was you.
I coined the phrase
Booger Snotter.
Booger Snotter.
Yeah.
But
But you did that a lot. You had some great, like, stuff that you used to say. I mean, you were so fucking funny, man. I think about it, I think of those times often. And those were some of the best times in my life. They really were, because I wasn't really blind yet. I was getting, it was enough to be called Tommy from the musical. Deaf, Dumb, and Blind Kid Sure Plays a Mean Pinball. That was me. And yeah, it was just, it was just, I don't know. We should have wrote a screenplay about those times.
yeah, totally. I know. Because there was a whole cast of characters too, because there were the other, there was like Jordan Rosa and Josh Russell and
Yeah.
the whole extended crew that were also
Adam Lee.
Yeah.
And Tony Bain.
Tony Bain.
Yeah, I see him on Facebook occasionally. Yeah, so I mean, we had some really, really fun times. And I must say, I was impressed by your ability to be close to girls at that time.
Yeah, I did all right.
You did very well. You're very smooth. You were smooth as Tennessee whiskey. You really were.
Yeah, well, I had a girlfriend that went to another high school the first part of high school, and so I had some practice. Like I had like a girlfriend in like 2 years, 3 years maybe. So I was like, once we had a horrible breakup, and it was like my senior year, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm now I'm a senior, and I've kind of been off limits, and so the girls were kind of like, they were kind of lurking around. Like I was single, so I'm like, this is it. This is my time to shine.
You did. Yeah, you shined. You shine brightly, my friend. You did very well. And I wanted to know what the secret was. I really did. Because I think you had a confidence. I think you definitely had a confidence and a kind of relaxed kind of vibe going. So I think and you were funny too.
Yeah, that always helps. And I think too, I think I had that confidence, like I said, because I had this girlfriend, and we had a lot of experience. We were pretty, we were
Hot and heavy.
hot and heavy, and like, so I was like, all right, well, I know my way around the bedroom a little bit. So, and I also was not super thirsty. I think that's always a good thing too. It's like, you can just kind of, if you're just yourself and you're not just trying to get laid all the time, things happen for you.
Yeah, that's true. And genuine, like, engagement, like, in presence. I think you had that. I had no confidence. So I had no fucking idea what I was doing. I had no role models growing up. I didn't see like a healthy male, like, female interaction. So my shit was always weird. But yeah, but yeah, I was very impressed. And but you and Tony as well. Tony was very comfortable with the ladies as well.
Yeah, and I think he had that. I mean, he was so talented too. So I think that was something that the women really saw in him. He was kind of had that, that star quality that especially in the theater circles, it always gets the the girls, in the chorus and stuff are like, oh, that guy's the leading man.
And he had the right thing for the right time, because that was when Jim Carrey
Yeah.
was doing really well with Ace Ventura. He kind of adopted that, and it worked well.
Yeah, the Hawaiian shirt and the leather jacket that he always wore.
Yeah, and the Converse. Yeah. Yeah, man. That was such a great time. I mean, just like the things where we go to the park and just like run around and just be. I love that. That was a really nice, like, transition from the end of school. We go to the park and just run around, and then we would go into rehearsal. That was awesome.
Yeah, I know, that was fun. Yeah, it was like a great sort of time that it was just free time, that it was still back where, you could be around you could just be around town, and it wasn't, dangerous to be, out and about.
Yeah. I mean, Los Gatos is, that's where all of the wealthy Silicon Valley executives live. So it was a very safe place to live, for sure. Although I heard Visona Park had some odd things happen over the years, but since I left, but some stalkers or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But so one of the other things is, so what was your favorite production that we did there?
I mean, I think they were all pretty good. I think West Side Story was pretty impressive for a high school play. I think the choreography was pretty advanced for a high school. I mean, yeah, I think as far as the musical, I also thought, were you there when we did Midsummer Night's Dream?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if I should bring up the death scene, but do you remember what I'm talking about?
No.
Really?
What?
I don't want to mention if it's going to be embarrassing. So we can let that go. But if you want, but we can talk offline about that if you want. I'm sorry, everybody.
No, I'm curious.
What's that?
Oh, I'm curious.
Now you're curious?
I don't remember it. Yeah. Oh,
okay. So Thisbe and what was it? Bottom?
Bottom. Yeah, I was Bottom.
Right. And so Thisbe was my character in that. And is that correct? Or am I totally off? Maybe I'm not remembering my character, but anyway, there's the fake suicide Romeo and Juliet scene at the end, right?
Yeah.
And so I fall on top of you, right? Are you remembering now?
Kind of. She isn't.
And I would be on top of you, but supposed to be dead, right? And you're whispering, and actually you're not even whispering. You could see it in the video. You can see your mouth like moving, and you're saying, "I got a boater."
Oh yeah.
I got a boater. I got a boater right now.
Because we were always trying to make each other break. That was like that was part of the whole theater life in the whole thing is we're always trying to make each other laugh on stage.
Yeah, I mean, you were an expert at it, though. You really, I mean, you would change the lines from the songs, but not subtly, but very loudly, so everybody could hear. Like in West Side Story, used to be a line, and Tony sings "Tonight, Tonight," that song, right? And there's like it's kind of like a duet with Maria and Tony, and there's a part where I think she says the minutes seem like hours, and you went, and the minutes seem like Hooters.
Oh, and then remember you had that line, "All right, Doc, Cokes all around." And like right before the scene would happen, we'd always come up to you and go, "Remember your line, Brian." "All right, Doc, cocks all around." Get you to say it on stage. You'd be like, "Shut up, I'm gonna say it." You're gonna make me say it on stage.
Oh man, that is so fucking funny. Yeah, I didn't remember that one. I did not remember that, but it's all coming back now. Oh yeah, I remember. And what were those variety show things that we used to do? They were just like,
Yeah, I don't know how they gave us permission to do that. I mean, there was, I think it started out because we would MC the talent show.
right.
So we would do skits between the acts.
That's right. Yeah. And then there was some things that like needed approval,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And like we'd have to go to Miss Edwards, who we'd have to give her a script and she'd have to say yay or nay.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember once we had some joke about sheep. And it wasn't dirty at all. It was just like, it was a joke about sheep. And she was like, well, we can't have this in there. And like when she said that, we immediately knew that she thought we were talking about fucking sheep.
Oh,
But we were like, what? Why sheep? And she was like, well, and we're like, what? No, I don't know. What are you talking about? And so we're trying to get her to say that you can't do this skit because we can't have you talking about fucking sheep.
right. And I remember like Tony had this character where he was talking about a Coke can, like a Coca-Cola can, but he'd go at the Coke can.
Yeah.
Do you see the Coke can? Do you remember that character? He had this weird like affectation.
I remember we did the George and Lenny skit where the gun didn't go off.
Yes.
And so
and you had to hit me over the head. Or no, it was Tony. He was playing
Tony, and so like it was Tony. So like I was looking all over for something I could kill him with because the gun didn't work. And like pulling out like a big like rubber like club. Good shit. I mean, it was a pretty, I mean, it would fly on Saturday Night Live. It was pretty good, well-written skits we had.
I know. And then and we did like Cheers spoofs, and and then I remember this. It was a funny thing. You did well, let me go back. I wanted to do it was Michael Malloy and I wanted to do like a condensed version of Godfather 2.
Yeah.
And we did that. I remember everybody was so bitter and angry about it. Everybody like hated working on it, but it came together. And at the end, but you played that like one hitman and it is in the courtroom and goes, yeah, the family's got a lot of buffers.
Yeah.
That was a great time, man. Those are some really wonderful memories. I still have the YMCA like Sadie Hawkins dance photo.
Oh yeah.
Where it's the village. It was you, Tony, and the girlfriend you were dating at the time. And then oddly, I didn't have like a village person. Like I was just in there for no reason at all. That was odd, but yeah. But yeah, well, that's fitting. I mean, I kind of was the odd person out, but yeah, man. So then you went to college, and I remember you kind of got serious. Things changed a little bit. I think you got exposed to some things, and then I remember you talking a lot about social justice issues.
Yeah, I know. I definitely did. I like I worked with a lot of LGBTQ issues in high school and college. And it was just, I mean, our theater program was really serious too. It was much more like, it was, like I said, it was Brecht and stuff. And I worked with all these amazing directors and stuff. So yeah, there was a lot more, it was kind of that college thing that you do where your world opens up and you're like, oh shit, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that I'm not okay with. And that, you can do something about it. You think you can do some stuff about.
Yeah, and I remember you had I remember you worked with some pretty amazing people. I remember, didn't you told me that your one of your professors was the actor that was in The Big Lebowski who played the mortician and says, "Are you the bereaved?"
Yep. I took a class from him. He was in my
Yeah.
and my mentor in college was a director, Sarah P. Anderson, and she was a British director, and she directed a lot of the Prime Suspects in England
Mhm.
series, and I ended up working with her a lot. And I went down to LA and visited her on a set of some pilot she was working on. So there was it was neat. There was a lot of really cool artsy stuff happening at UC Davis of all places.
So how do you feel like you transformed during that time?
Um, I mean, I think I became really, I kind of just threw myself into college. So I really wanted to go to Italy. That became something that I was really focused on. So I was taking Italian classes, and I think that I wanted to, I really wanted to travel and explore things and really, build meaningful relationships with new people that I was meeting. And you have those sort of dorm room conversations up all night, and I was just really was I really got interested in in expanding sort of my mind and my sphere, and doing things that were um, that I could that were meaningful experiences. I really wanted to make the most out of um, being there and the artists I was working with and stuff like that. Um, and I had a serious girlfriend um, in college too, which lasted all the way up until she came to LA with me too. So I was like 7-year relationship. We almost got married. So I tend to be kind of a relationship person. So I definitely got more serious for sure.
Mhm. And then what was the experiencing of experiencing, I mean, experience of going to Bologna?
Yeah, so my junior year, I went to Bologna for a whole year. So it wasn't just like a semester or a quarter. So I went there, and I was studying theater. And I got there, and it's like you go to the University of Bologna. It's not like, some separate thing. Like I was taking all my classes in Italian, and I got an apartment with some Italian guys, some like fricatone, they call them. They're like Italian hippies, and they just smoked tons of hash. And it was like, it was just like this crazy, bohemian lifestyle in Italy. And I met a bunch of really cool Americans that were studying abroad there too. So my friend David Morin, who I'm still close with, who lives in the Bay Area, and Monique Murad, who works for the State Department now. I'm
So
still
you have some inside information.
just that the State Department, the USAID doesn't work very well.
Okay. Okay. Well, I could have told you that, but but so what was it about Italy that you that were drawn to?
Well, like I said, it was my culture. First of all, it was like I really wanted to, it was always a big part of my identity that I was Italian American. I loved the language, and I'd been there when I was a kid, and I really wanted to, live there again. I wanted to, really learn the language, and it's kind of like the birthplace of theater. It's where like the Commedia dell'arte came from, and the whole Italian Renaissance. So I was like, this is a great place for me to go to study I did all my theater histories there.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to go somewhere. And I'm like, it was a good fit. And
How was your Italian when you first arrived? Because you had taken Italian like in high school, right?
well, I'd taken Spanish in high school, but I'd taken 2 years of college. Like in order to do that program, you had to take your 2 years of college Italian. So, I mean,
Mhm.
I spoke it. I knew it academically, but when you
Mhm.
get there, it's completely different. You're like, wow, trying to keep up with actual people speaking Italian is hard. But after a couple months, you get into a groove. And I think I was pretty fluent after being there for about 3 months. I was like, okay, I was dreaming in Italian, and I could pretty much keep up, with the
That
conversation.
sounds like a great title for a song.
Dreaming.
I was dreaming in Italian.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I went to Italy in 2001, and I had a wonderful time. I mean, just the food alone,
Yeah.
like
Definitely.
just I mean that was just, everything was amazing. Everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was not one. I mean, there was maybe one experience that wasn't the best, but other than that, everything else was just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I traveled so much when I was there too. It was like, that's kind of the neat thing about Italy, is it
Mm.
was built as these, it wasn't a unified country until, the early 1900s. It was all these little city states and different kingdoms. So you can actually spend a year just traveling around Italy and not even leave the country and feel like you've had this amazing traveling experience. So I traveled every weekend. I didn't go to as many classes as I probably should have, but I traveled a lot.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I mean, after school ended, me and my girlfriend at the time actually got mountain bikes. We were out of money. We got mountain bikes and we got on the train and just biked. Once we got to Naples, we just biked the entire coast of Italy all the way into
The
Sicily.
Amalfi Coast.
Yeah, and all the way just took, stayed in a little campground, slept on the beach for about 30-35 days. And it was
Wow.
wonderful. I mean, people are so friendly, and it was definitely like that kind of backpacking through Europe experience that you hope for.
That you must have some wonderful memories of that. I mean, it's just, I mean, everything is just so beautiful. It's just a enchanting place.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was definitely. I'm really glad I did that. I definitely tell all my students, I'm like, hey, if you get a chance to study abroad, go for it, because it's a great experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, and I remember, it was really interesting to watch you evolve, I mean, from how I knew you in high school, and then after, when you went to college. I mean, I remember you coming home and seeming different and wanting to talk about more serious issues, and it was just interesting to watch that. But I mean, you were always pretty passionate about certain things, and
Yeah.
even in high school, where you got very serious about some, one issue or another.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it was just really amazing to watch your evolution.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think about it, and now it's, a lot of it's coming back about how much you did, and it's really amazing because, you've been teaching for so long, and that's kind of all I've when I think about, it's just like teaching, and but so you got back home after Italy. Is there anything there that like you'd share, that like any experience that like you're like, that's something I'm going to remember for the rest of my life, is one of the most profound experiences ever?
When I was in Italy,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, definitely that. I mean, there's so many amazing things, but I mean, that bike trip, I think, was really great because it was just amazing how it really taught me how friendly people are, like how
Mhm.
really on the, you know, deep down, you're going to meet so many more people that are kind and generous than you will assholes, if you're looking for that.
Mhm.
And if you're open to it, and if you're kind in turn, we'd stop in these little villages and people would come out of their homes with bread and wine,
Mhm.
just because they saw travelers sitting in the town square, with our bikes and our packs.
Mhm.
And everywhere we went, we just had the opportunity to meet really kind people, other travelers, other locals. And it kind of gave me that confidence to know that, hey, it doesn't matter if you only have $100 to your name and a pack on your back, that you'll find people that will be kind to you, and you can be okay. It'll be okay.
Mhm.
Trust yourself, and you're doing things for the right reasons. You can get through this life without, if you're true to yourself, if you really know what you want to do, and you're not out to hurt anybody else, that you can be all right.
Yeah, hospitality will be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So, so what happened when you came back? So you started working in LA immediately, or did
No,
you?
right when I came back, I took a job at the Santa Cruz Shakespeare Festival. And
Okay, I remember that. I
yeah,
remember that. That's coming back. Shit, there's a lot of shit I'm just lost. And I remember going to one of the productions that you were working on.
yeah, it was Romeo and Juliet, and it was really cool. And it was neat to be in the sort of that festival environment. And so yeah, that was really neat. So I was there, and my girlfriend at the time was in Africa, because she was a primatology major, and she was working on a project in Kenya, in the Laikipia Plateau. And so she was there, and I was like, and she was like, I'm going to be here for another 6 months. And so I was like, well, she's like, you should come join me. I have this house, you can do something. You can either work on the project with me or find something. So I was like, all right. So I was waiting tables. I saved up some money and bought a ticket to East Africa, and went to Kenya for 5 months.
Now, see, that's another thing. That came back too. And I remember you told a story about an elephant. There was like a dangerous situation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Gosh, the elephants they're crazy, because you have to have spotters, because they're so quiet. They're these huge animals, but you can easily get trampled because they're the same height as the chaparral, the brush there. So that you have to have somebody watching, and like all of a sudden, there's an elephant 10 feet away, and they're like, get in the Jeep,
Right.
But I was there for like a week, and it was amazing. Well, I lost all my luggage going there first. So I got there and I had I had nothing.
Oh, that sucks.
I had nothing. So like we went to I just went to the market and bought enough clothes to last me.
Were they like all like local attire, or?
I mean, it was all just kind of just cotton shirts and stuff that
Right.
But I was there for like a week, and I was helping with this monkey thing, right? And it's cool, you're out there and you're on safari, and like you're sitting there and you're taking notes, and like after a couple of days of this, sitting in the sun for 6 hours taking notes on when a monkey scratches his ass, I was like, this is real boring. I'm like, this is boring. So I actually went to the elementary school, and I was like, hey, can I volunteer and teach an English class and a theater class? So I actually spent my time there. Most of my days, I taught an English class to a class of the kids, and we developed a show. I adapted a children's book into a play, and we worked on a play every afternoon. And I had about 30 kids that we did this show for the whole village, and it was really fun. It was
fantastic.
A great way to spend my few months in Africa. I really got to know the people, and everybody was so great. It was really neat.
So yeah, it's incredible the places you've been now. So what is the one memory that kind of stays with you from that trip?
I think there was this moment where the kids we were like playing soccer, and they didn't have shoes, and they're like, and they have their soccer balls like this, not really even a soccer ball, and they're all playing, and we're about to start rehearsal, and I'd gotten scripts. I went to town and I'd made these Xerox copies of scripts, and so I call everybody in, and like I give everybody their papers, and they're like, we get to keep these? And I was like, yeah, you have to keep these. You get to have these so you can learn your lines. And they were just so excited that like this was theirs, this was their piece of art, that they didn't have to give back, and they could write in it, and they could it was just the appreciation for what we were doing was just really neat. That was a moment that just really struck me as kind of a neat thing.
That's beautiful. Are you still in contact with any of the students?
Not for a while. I did send some. I did like send a care package back to the school when I got back, but that was so many years ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What year was that?
Gosh, that was like 1999. It was right before I came to LA, so like right at the end of 99, I think.
Okay. Okay. And then you went to Pasadena?
Yeah, I went to, well, when I moved in, actually I moved to this in with Tony and my girlfriend at the time to a little place in North Hills in the Panorama City area of the valley. It was our first time.
Really? You lived in Panorama City now? I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, this little like craftsman bungalow in
Huh.
the middle of the ghetto. But
Did I ever visit you there?
no.
Yeah, that's not, I'm not resonating.
Yeah, I don't know. That
That's
was,
fucking weird. What the fuck was I doing during that time that we weren't like communicating?
oh,
That's really odd. Okay. It's just baffling to me because I mean, generally I remember the kind of arc, but that period is odd. That must have been when Tony and I, must have been like a year or something that Tony and I weren't talking or something.
yeah. Yeah, I can remember that. Yeah, so that's when I moved to LA. That was kind of the that was the, well, actually I guess I actually moved with Josie's family to San Diego for a couple months, then to LA, but that was all part of the same move.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how was it? You say you were kind of disenchanted by the commercial aspect of acting, and then what?
Yeah. Well, the theater company started to dissolve. There was like, there was a couple that were kind of the head people and they had a breakup, and so it was kind of coming apart a little bit. I did one more show with them, and then the guy who ran the space got this fax or something from somebody somehow that was looking for a teacher to start this was called a free school, and it was part of this Sudbury philosophy, and it was up in the mountains above LA. And they're like, well, you can live here and you can start this school and you can study this philosophy, which I was really interested in. It was like this idea where it's super student driven, so the kids basically choose what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're interested in, and then you sort of build the curriculum around that. So so I ended up moving in with these people it was like a homeschooling collective.
Okay.
It's a cabin up on their property in the mountains, and we ended up we built like this big geodesic dome, and there was a yoga teacher, and it was kind of this really cool hippy dippy free school homeschooling thing. And that's where I met my wife. That's where I met Laura.
Now, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. And so when did you decide I'm gonna just go full throttle into education?
Well, I think it was kind of like a little bit of a process. I think that it was I think it was probably when I still had my toe in doing some directing and acting in some projects. And then when we were expecting our first kid, it was like, all right, well, I gotta get my teaching credential and do this full time. And I didn't know that I wouldn't go back to acting, but it just kind of got put to the back burner. And I'm like, I think it's time for a shift. And I gotta get a career going here.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of when I decided to get my teaching credential, and I decided to go to Pacific Oaks because it's a very social justice driven school. It's famous for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really wanted to, I knew if I was going to get into teaching full time, I didn't want to just become a part of the system, because I'd been working in the system and I knew it was not great. And I was like, if I'm going to do this, I want to do something where I can make a difference. And I'd ended up working in a charter school for a little while that I agreed with the philosophy, but I didn't really like the management. And so I was just I was going to school, I was raising kids and I was going to school and I was substitute teaching, and I was doing all these long-term sub assignments and a lot of special ed classes because special education always has teacher shortages. And so I would be working in a classroom for a semester, for a year. And I really enjoyed working with the students. I really enjoyed the small class sizes. I really connected with the students. I felt, and you kind of had the freedom to do what you want and make your own curriculum within LAUSD, you know, because nobody really watches you. There's a body in the room, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, and so I really got to develop some neat stuff, and I ended up working in the school in my neighborhood high school, and that's when I met sort of this group of teachers that were really interested in, you know, these other teachers that were artists, but also content teachers that were really interested in doing something different, doing a smaller school that was community based, that was really making an entire campus where, you know, when kids go from one place to the other, they're always getting a quality education, and it's all arts infused. Like it's a process, arts processed based high school. And so that's when I met them. And a couple of years after that, we decided to start Artes, which is where I am today.
So how did that come about? Was it just, you were just kind of, you're like, I mean, that must have been like kind of a scary moment. Like you're like, should I do this? Should I not? You know?
Yeah, it was, I mean, at that time I'd been teaching, and it was hard. I mean, it was really hard teaching in a system where you knew that no matter how well you were doing in your class with these kids, that you weren't really, that you were sending them off to a system that was broken. And we were all sort of leaders in the school in some way. And the principal was sending us off to look at different models, because they're like, well, maybe we'll do something different with this school that we're in. You know, there was a lot of reform happening in the district. And so they sent us off to do this stuff. And we looked at some stuff, and we came back and said, hey, look, if we really want to change things, then this is what I think that we should do this. We should create a school within a school, and we should not sort of half-ass it with small learning communities and these sort of band-aid measures, but really create an art school that's on the same campus, where all the kids go to this school with these teachers all day long, and really have the curriculum, really do innovative things with the curriculum. And almost immediately they got really scared and got really threatened. And we had a massive backlash from the teachers that were other teachers in the school, and the principal turned on us, and they tried to shut us down. And that kind of pissed us off. And we're like, no, we're not gonna, we have this vision and we think that it could be really good. And we just didn't give up. We're like, you know what? They're saying that and so we were fighting them for like almost a year. We got the head of the union was involved, was supporting us, and the superintendent came and was mediating between us and the other teachers.
Intense.
We lost friends, you know, people wouldn't talk to us on campus.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it was
wow.
Nasty,
huh?
Yeah, it got really nasty. I mean, it was like they and so eventually the board member came and said, look, I love what you guys are doing, but there's this school down the road that's opening up, that's a brand new campus, and we want to put 5 schools in there. Instead of fighting these assholes for the rest of your life about having this power struggle, why don't you come and start your own school right here in San Fernando, and you can have complete autonomy and freedom to do what you want. Just write up the plan, and if it gets approved, then you can have your school there. And it was still being built at the time. And we actually went into the theater, and me and John Lawler, who was principal, we both had a theater background. We convinced them to put like an extra $300,000 of upgrades into the theater.
Oh, wow.
While being built. So like our theater on our campus is the most state-of-the-art theater in all of LAUSD.
Oh, really?
It's got like 8 electrics. You can do theater in the round. It's got a state-of-the-art sound system. You know, $10,000 light board. It's a great theater.
It sounds like it.
Yeah,
that's fabulous. So, I want to ask you this because it popped into my mind. But have you spoken with Anthony Cristofani?
I have not spoken. I spoke to him once years ago, but I haven't spoken to him in years.
Oh, really? What did you see him on Polyamory?
Yes, I did. I did. Crazy.
Yeah, I was shocked about that too. But it seems like a lot of that was kind of manufactured though. Like,
Yeah, I'm sure it is
yeah,
reality.
so I'm
Yeah.
sure there is some truth to it, but a lot of it was seemed like it might have been. But anyway, so let's go back a little bit. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for the digression, but
No,
so what were some of your educational influences?
no. Uh, Maria Montessori. I read a lot of Montessori because, as I said, when I started out, I was doing a lot of early childhood ed stuff because I was studying that for my kids too, because we
Mhm.
homeschool kids from they were younger. But yeah, Maria Montessori, Piaget was a big influence, and uh, also pedagogy of the oppressed
Right?
was was a big influence. What else? Gosh,
Have you ever read Escaping Education
I don't
by
know.
Gustavo Esteva
Oh, I
and
don't.
Matthew Prakash?
Mm-mm.
It's a friend of mine. He wrote it, so I'm just curious. He started he became I met him when I was working on a master's degree in Vermont, and Gustavo Esteva, and so he was there kind of talk about education and social justice, and he was an advisor to the Zapatistas,
Mhm,
and he started Universidad de la Tierra in
mhm.
Oaxaca.
Oh wow.
And so he there's one there and there's one in Chiapas as well. And yeah, so I thought maybe there would be some crossover there. But um
Hold on
but
one sec. Can you give me 30 seconds? I'll be right back. I gotta.
yeah, yeah, of course. So here we are with Joshua Rauh. He and I went to high school together, and we spent a lot of time together. Had a lot of formative moments, some amazing laughs. Probably some of the funniest moments of my life were spent with Josh, and I love him. He's a great man, and he's done well with his life, and you know, basically created a life of service. And it's just amazing what he's done, and I'm very proud of him and happy for what he's created. Has a beautiful family, a beautiful life, and la vita è bella, right? So I think I said that right. Maybe I fucked that up. I don't know. So yeah, I don't know where he went.
I'm
So
back. I'm back. There we go.
okay. Did you have to go potty?
Yeah, I had to take a quick potty break.
Yeah, well, we're getting older. We're getting
Yeah.
older. So um but yeah, that's great, man. So what's the plan now? Are you gonna franchise this, or
Well, I
what's
know. We've really sort of over the last 10 years, we've really kind of gotten a good system down. I mean, our school has 6 pathways. So we have visual art, performing art, visual art, theater, dance, band, um, digital art, and stage tech. So we have these different threads that the kids can follow for their education, and it's really neat. We've got such a great colleagues there, and so I'd like to see, now that we kind of have it dialed in, I'd like to find a way to make it something that can be spread to other campuses. Trying to find ways to make a system that is replicatable is kind of hard,
Mhm.
uh, but I think that's kind of something I'd like to work on in the next couple of years, finding at least some of the things that I know that we do really well, working on some professional development to try to get other schools on board, to make it part of their curriculum.
Now, are you experimenting with virtual reality and augmented reality at all in the
Um, a little bit. I think the graphic design teacher touches on it a little bit, but that's something that's very, it's kind of a very specific skill, you know,
Yeah.
in terms of it's something you really have to know. I mean, he's really a master of Photoshop and stuff like that. But I think he's doing some animation stuff. But I think there might be something on the horizon.
The reason I asked, I have a friend. He's the founder of or co-founder of the Peace Literacy Institute.
Mhm.
And one of his primary focus is using virtual reality and augmented reality as a tool for peace literacy.
Mm,
And he loves it because he can do things in that environment as an educator that he couldn't do anywhere else.
right.
And it seems like that's probably where education is going in a lot of ways, because I mean, I can't see, of course, but for somebody who's visual, um, it seemed, and it was described to me because he knew I was blind, but it just seemed like an amazing space to be able to, you know, teach something in a very like organic and like almost experiential way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I could definitely see that. Um, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, one of the biggest things about what I love about having a small campus and having is that you can really build community. I think that whenever, whenever anybody talks about education, you cannot underestimate the need for a strong climate that where you can really have trust amongst the student body and with the adults, you know. And so that's where everything starts. It's about creating a space where kids feel open to learning, especially when you're talking about public school, where they come from, a lot of the past institutions, and also just the life that they're living. It's very hard to let your guard down, and that's what I think is one of the strongest aspects of our school. Is if you're going to have an art school, people have to feel free to make art, which is kind of a very vulnerable space to be in.
Mm.
And so you really have to do a lot of teaching of you have to really build a lot of trust with
Yeah.
kids.
So how did you get into teaching students with disabilities?
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying earlier, is that I was subbing so many of these classes, and I really enjoyed working with the population, and it became an area that I thought I could make a large impact, um, because there was so much that has to be done. I mean, that was the thing. I mean, when we started the school, I was so committed to having a school that was fully inclusive. I didn't, it just drove me crazy to see these special day classes and stuff that were in these bungalows in the back of these campuses, where these kids were not given the opportunity to really be fully included in the general ed curriculum. And I thought that working at an art school, building an art school around this idea of full inclusivity was just really exciting. That I was working in these special ed classes, but I didn't have the power to really do what I wanted to do in a special education environment because it was so segregated and so compartmentalized.
Yeah. And it probably still is to some degree, right?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of campuses, there's a big push for it. I mean, there's been a push for the last 20 years, but LAUSD is finally catching up to the trends and trying to do some things that are. It's a very difficult thing. It's a very hard. It's not a move you can make on the surface level. It's like it really goes deep into everything from the programming of the students. And the training of the general ed teachers, having special education teachers that are really committed to doing it. And it's really hard to do in a culture, in school cultures that are really entrenched in traditional norms of segregation. So it's a hard ship to turn around, for sure. But being in a school where it is a wall-to-wall inclusion school, you really get to see how much it means to students who are on the spectrum, who are the stars of our plays, for instance. or students that have been marginalized throughout their careers as students, because they're working in sort of a deficit-based system, and being able to create these amazing artist portfolios, and all of a sudden they're being seen for their strengths, and their peers are seeing them for the first time as people who are gifted and have strengths in areas that are not just down this one path. And so it's very transformational for students coming into adulthood, especially seeing them grow into themselves, and not be sort of forced into these boxes.
Yeah, I think about it in my own life. The segregation was there, and I don't remember really encountering that many people with disabilities throughout most of my education. And even in college, I think about experiencing the onset of my own disabilities, and the fact that I don't really remember having any kind of experience with anybody with disabilities at all, in the sense of guidance. And I remember people saying, like, when it's acting stuff, they're like, just do it for as long as you can.
Right.
It wasn't like adapt, and you can still do it. You just have to do it differently than everybody else. And that was something I really needed. And I didn't have it. And it's wonderful that is your focus, in inclusion, because it's still, I mean, there's so many people like with disabilities, even myself, sometimes I don't want to fucking go out sometimes, just because it's so aggravating to deal with, like, the, barriers to inclusion, or just the, like, the shit you have to hear, like the, where the romantic, I don't know, maybe they call it, I can't remember, but it's just basically like, people calling me brave, and they have no idea who I am, I'm just because I'm walking on the street,
Yeah.
So, but, so was there an experience with somebody that you're like, that is why I do this?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of great stories about our kids, because they're also amazing,
Mm.
But let me think. I know that we have this one student, Victor, who came in, and he came in as a ninth grader, and he's a student with autism, and he came in as a ninth grader, and he was so, like, he just wouldn't look anybody in the eye, and he was just scared, like he didn't feel like he belonged, and he didn't know, he was not a horrible student. He would do his work, but when he said that he wanted to do theater, I took him to the theater teacher, and we implemented some accommodations, both socially and academically, and it was just, you could just see him, even in a matter of weeks, as being in the theater class, just coming into his own and feeling like he could do things. He could do things he never saw himself doing.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up playing Uncle Fester in the musical The Addams Family.
Awesome.
And he played Bottom in A Midsummer Night's Dream, and he became a leader in our school. By the time it was his senior year, not only was he accepted, but people looked up to him as someone they could learn from. And that's one of the things that I always talk about inclusion, that as good as it is for the students with disabilities, it can be even better for the people without disabilities, who are exposed to people who are different, and who now they're seeing the world in a different way. They're seeing the world not in sort of this black and white. They're not seeing people for their disabilities. They're seeing their worlds are expanded as well.
Yeah.
And now he's at Chico State, and he's a theater major, and I think he's also a political science major. And he's getting really
He's going to become the next president.
Yeah, he's becoming really involved in political issues, and and seeing where he came from as a 14-year-old kid, and just seeing how much the power of a community, of an inclusive community, was really amazing.
Yeah, my wife has an older son. He's 22 or 21. And when she was, raising him, um, she noticed a lot of things happening and didn't know what they were. Like, he couldn't tie his shoes. He had really horrible handwriting, but he read at like a college level. Um, and it was just like very confusing. A lot of things were happening, and she learned, but it took a lot of work and a lot of effort to even get a diagnosis. But it turned out that he was on the spectrum. And I mean, he had, it was like painful for him to like write with his hand, and he ended up getting an accommodation where he could use a keyboard, but it took a long time to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, it really takes a lot of advocacy on the part of parents, and and a lot of work destigmatizing, even which I love to see now. I see a lot of that happening with this generation of people self-diagnosing autism in themselves and doing, and I think it's really a good, it's a really good turn that society's making. And so,
Well, Jerry Seinfeld, I think he said he felt, well, he saw some play on Broadway and said, I think I'm on the spectrum,
right.
Which I think, brought attention to it as well.
Yeah.
So where are you going? Like, what's happening? What's next? Do you have any projects? Have you thought about going back and auditioning? What's happening?
Geez, I don't know. I think that I'm kind of I'm
Let me
sort of,
ask you the interview question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
well, I mean, I think in 5 years, I kind of see myself. I mean, I like the trajectory I'm on. I feel like I want to keep building. I'm this school is kind of my life's work, and in 5 years, my youngest son will be in college. So I kind of see myself kind of keeping on for the next 5 years, and seeing sort of where this path that I'm on takes me. But I don't have any big plans. I don't have any big ambitions at this point, because I'm kind of satisfied with what I'm working on at the moment. And we'll see what, once the kids are all out of the house and I have even more time, where I will be. But I'm kind of really happy with where I am right now.
Well, maybe the Rolling Stones can't have any satisfaction, but you can.
Yes.
So is there anything, like, is there any way for anybody that's listening and watching that they can contribute to the school, or is there any projects that need assistance?
Wow. Well, you know what? I think that our website is artesmagnet.org. And yeah, just go on our website, and I think there's a contribute button or something where you can, we always need new band uniforms and boosters for that kind of stuff. So
if you send me the link, I'll put it in the show description. How about that?
all right, great.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask you a few questions just to kind of, to close it out a little bit. So I'm started to ask these just to kind of see how people respond, and I don't want you to feel any pressure. It's not something you really have to think about. It's just whatever comes to your mind first is what's important. So the question is, if you could talk to everybody on earth at the same time and whisper into their ears, every living being, what would you say to them? And the translation would also come across as well.
I've got a boner.
That was perfect. Now, I almost don't want to ask this because I think it would be the same answer. What would be your epitaph? Or if you could do a short eulogy, what would you say?
Oh, for myself?
Yeah.
Oh, I would say that Josh Rauh was committed to squeezing every bit of life out of this life.
That sounds scary, but but I get it. You see, it reminded me of that scene when Ian Holmes said in Big Night, where he grabs Stanley Tucci's ass and says, "You take a bite out of the ass of life."
Exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, you have that Italian passion. I think I know I got Tony that T-shirt in high school. I bought because I had T-shirts made. Was yours also Italian passion?
What was it? I don't. Maybe.
Do you still have that shirt, or
I don't
did you toss it?
I outgrew it.
Yeah, it probably fell apart, but yeah. Have you talked to Tony at all? Like, have you?
Last time I talked to Tony a couple of years ago when I was up north.
So it's been that long?
Yeah, I haven't talked to Tony Panagetti in a while. That's for sure.
So he's not on Facebook.
I know.
And so I have no idea what the fuck he's doing. I sent him a message recently. He didn't respond, but sometimes he does that.
Yeah.
And I did talk to him. You probably were aware that, I think you're definitely probably aware, Jason German passed away.
Yeah.
And so he told me about that. He was the one that happened, what, like 2015, something like that.
Yeah,
that was very sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were, that was such a wonderful time, high school, and feel like Al Bundy talking about it, but scored 4 touchdowns at Polk High. Yeah, man, I deeply appreciate you having this conversation with me. It brings back some wonderful memories, and I'm deeply grateful for the work you've done for inclusion and the school that you've created, and integrating the arts into it. That's fabulous, and it's needed. And I'm happy to hear that you're thriving and your family is doing well. And I'm just delighted. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to do this. It was so great to get your message, and that I could be here and sit down with you, because it's been a long time, and I really appreciate you valuing me like this.
Yeah, I deeply value. I value our friendship, our memories, our shared memories, and yeah, we definitely have to get together. I want to get down to LA. I was supposed to go down literally. I was going to go see my friend's band and visit some friends in LA. And this was like, I feel like it was like March 19th of 2020. So it just, everything started to shut down.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really been on vacation in like years. And I was like, fuck, man. Like everything just shut down and I didn't get to go to LA. So I want to get back, and
stay anytime, man.
Thank you. I deeply appreciate that. And if you're ever up in Northern California, well, when it's not on fire, of course, it's bad, dude. I'm surrounded, like Tahoe, like the Caldor fire, and we had a fire like literally last week. We had to evacuate my office.
My God, man.
Yeah, it's scary shit, man. This area is just like, I mean, they did an article, though, the Washington Post said in 2018 that Nevada City would be the next paradise.
Wow. Yeah.
So, when it's not on fire, you're welcome to visit. I mean, the air quality is just, even if it's not, close by, it's always present because it smells like hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
but
safe, man.
Thank you. And you as well. And I'm so happy to hear your voice, and let's stay connected, and let's not let too much time pass before we talk again.
Yes, let's do that.
All right. You want to say that website one more time?
Yeah. artesmagnet.org. ARTESMAGNET.org.
All right. Thank you, Joshua Rauh. This was The Blind Man in Black. I am your host, Brian Snyder. And if you like the show, please rate, subscribe, review. Anything helps. And if you're interested, you can watch my wife and I being obnoxious and exhausting on TikTok on the Exhausting Snyders. Thank you so much for being here, Josh. Love you, man. And please stay healthy and safe. And now we're going to have our awkward ending.
All right. Thank you, buddy. Love you.
Love you. All right, here we go. Here we go.